We all know and love the classic amen break. It has been sampled, resampled, mashed up, and used countless times across pretty much every single genre in modern music. First used by a major act, Salt-N-Pepa, back in 1986. Since then, it's been immersed in British and international music culture to the point where it's now become a staple sound. And even though it is widely used, there are hundreds and hundreds of other breaks that you can use in your music. One way that I like to do it is to find an already existing song and dive deep into that track, see where they got their break from, where they sampled it, and then use that break to make my own music. So instead of using the amen break, let's use the Adam F. Circles break, also known as Curtis Blow, Do the Do. Do the do 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 the do. It doesn't sound anything like that. So here is the break. Add in a kick drum into the project, and I'm also going to shorten that so that the tail is not so long. And then I'm going to create a double kick, so before the snare drum, and then the classic two-step rhythm towards the end. So now that we have a kick in the project, we also have a little bit of an issue, which is the layering of double kicks. So what I'm going to do is manually sidechain. So this first beat I'm going to fade in, and also, even though this isn't a kick drum, I'm also going to manually sidechain here as well. And you'll notice with this break that I'm not actually aligning anything to the grid because I want to maintain the groove in the break. By creating these fades, what we're actually doing is hiding the fact that it's not fully quantized, but maintain the groove at the same time, whilst also avoiding any phase cancellation issues. So you can hear that ducking now. Let's introduce a snare drum. Again, I'm going to shorten it. Space is really important in drum and bass. You want to kind of maintain as much space in the mix as possible because you want all of those elements to come through. And by introducing that snare, what we've got is this kind of double impact, which isn't very good. We want to have that snare impacting straight through into the mix. And you can see here that we actually have the transient, the first portion of the snare drum, coming at different times. So we can just also manually sidechain here as well, creating a fade. That's all sidechaining is it's pulling down the volume of one instrument so that we can hear another one in the mix. And so by doing that, now we have a snare drum that is punching through and you don't have that double tap feeling. The other thing to point out here is because we've got a double kick, we've got two different bits of audio over our kick drum here. And actually, if you listen to just this portion, you'll be able to hear that we have a little bit of a different sonic character between the two drums, because a drummer is never going to hit that kick drum with the same amount of energy twice in a row. It's going to be different. It's a human behavior. So even though the first instrument is a kick drum with some cymbals over the top, the second one is only the cymbals. And so we've got this different character over the top of our two kick drums, which makes it feel a lot more human. And that's what breaks do. They add human and groove. As we do now have our main hits in the project, we want to go into the break and high pass on an EQ, just so that we're removing anything that's going to cause a little bit of an issue in the low end. Let's duplicate this section so that we have a little bit more to work with. And we're also going to process this break. The thing with breaks is that they're very loose in terms of energy. So we want to kind of tighten up the transients. One of my favorite transient shapers is from Kilohertz. I got that with Phase Plan, and this is just really easy to use. You just bring down the sustain, increase the attack. Maybe you want a little bit of a pump. And then also, let's get a frequency shifter. Again, let's just use the Kilohertz one because it's really easy to use. It's just going to increase the frequency. We're going to be processing the entire drum group at the end of the video, and make sure you keep watching until then because there is a new plugin for parallel compression that I am absolutely in love with, and I definitely think you should get it. That's not me just saying that. I honestly think that you should get this. If you listen to the Adam F. Circles track, you'll be able to hear an addition of a few cymbals in the stereo image, which is actually quite nice. At the moment, everything is pretty central, so we could start to introduce additional cymbals as if we were a drummer that were playing in the left and the right image. So this crash here is actually the same sample, but what I'm going to do is switch it up so that it's a little bit left and a little bit right. And actually, let's just drop this one by a couple of semitones. By dropping the pitch of your sample, what you're actually doing is creating that sense of less energy. If you hit something really hard with the stick, you're going to get a lot of that high frequency crack. But if you hit it more softly, you're going to get less of a high frequency crack. And we can emulate that by dropping this a couple of semitones. Now we have one cymbal pan to the left, one to the right, and they both have a different perceived sense of energy. Don't forget that on all of your crash cymbals, they are high frequency instruments, so you can take that high pass filter right up so that you're avoiding any competition of frequencies in an area of the frequency spectrum where these cymbals just don't exist. If you're getting something out of this video, please consider liking it and commenting on it. Even if you're a keyboard warrior, I would love to hear from you. Please comment on the video, let me know how much you think I suck. Now that we've got that, let's introduce some 16ths into the project. So I'm going to take this Total Science drum loop and chop out just the 16ths. And then we're going to repeat them over and over and over again. Boom, 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 Control and D. Also going to layer this even further. Let's get a hi-hat, and we're going to use the same technique that we just used earlier by taking the hi-hat, copying it over and dropping it a couple of semitones so that we get that less energy impact. And that's going to give us a little bit more of a interesting and natural organic feel. So now we have these two together. Both of them are high-passed. I want to introduce a little bit of envelope ducking, so we're going to get the LFO from Zephyr Records, initialize that. So now we're going to shape this. If we just increase the volume here. Get a little bit of a bleed coming through. Maybe we'll increase that rate to 16 as well. Onto the hat, let's send this into a little bit more of a perceived stereo width. So we're going to go with the Haas plugin from Kilohertz again. I'm also going to just also balance that over to the right. So now that we just have that little bit of a sizzle in the stereo using the Haas plugin. Sidechaining, super important in modern dance music. We've already done a little bit of sidechaining up here manually, but down here on the 16ths, rather than using a sidechain in a compressor, we're going to use a sidechain of a gate using a trigger of the kick drum. So we're going to create a new track, going to get this kick drum, make it a little bit shorter, and then we're going to send that signal to the sidechain of a gate. And by doing that, we can then control that sidechain a lot more with things like the range, the ratio. Send this track to sends only, and let's just bring that to the top of the project. We're going to call that trigger. Trigger. So that's now our sidechain trigger, and we're going to send that into the sidechain input of the Pro G. Activate external in, and let's set this to ducking. And now we can control using the ratio, the range, the release, the attack to get the desired amount of ducking that we want. We've got an incredible Discord full of producers that if you're not already in there, you need to get yourself in there. We just did a remix competition. If you want to listen to all of the remixes, then they are on my SoundCloud as well. Both of those will be linked below in the description so that you can check them out. But please jump into the Discord and join the production community. Normalizing was a big thing back in the day to get the lower level peaks of your break up to match the upper peaks, which would then get clipped, which is all well and good, but then it starts to introduce a lot of harmonics, which could be a little bit unwanted. We can get around this though by using upwards and downwards compression in conjunction with saturation, which introduces harmonics. So let's jump back up to the break and we're going to just grab everyone's favorites. Drum roll, please. OTT. Why not? Let's just whack on OTT. So we can now multiband process and bring up those lower peaks and squash them down at the same time. Now, I don't really like to have it on 100% because that sounds a bit over the top, ironically, but you can then attenuate your amount so that you get a little bit of a desired amount in the mix. And then we can introduce saturation in there as well. This is actually a free plugin, so definitely grab this. This is Softube Saturation Knob, and you can saturate and focus on the neutral or the highs or the lows. I'm going to keep it on neutral and just increase it a little bit. So you have a lot more control there over your introduction of harmonics and then the compression. So now that we have all of our drums, we're going to group them together and we're going to send them to one of my favorite new plugins, which I will be linking below in the description. I think, to be honest, you just need to look at the entire bundle from Baby Audio because there's some awesome plugins in there. I'm going to be shouting about a lot of them, including Crystalline, but they're all really, really good. So yeah, check it out. Anyway, look, this is the updated IHNY plugin, which is now IHNY2. It's a parallel compressor. You stick it on your return channel. You send from your drum group to this plugin. You have an array of presets in here. So we could go on to drums. We could stick overheads on there. So you have a wet and a dry value on the y-axis and a minimum and a maximum amount on the x-axis. But then you also have this button here, which is a tweak. And you can tweak things like the attack, the ratio, the punch, the harmonics, the shape, the tilt. And you really do have a lot more of control. Again, it's control. It sounds good. And if it sounds good, I like it. That's literally my motto. I think that's probably most people's motto, but that's mine. The IHNY2 parallel compressor plugin is linked below in the description. Make sure you grab it. In my opinion, make sure you grab the entire bundle because it's totally worth it. And if you liked this video, give it a like. And if you want to do all the other stuff like comment and subscribing, then that would mean the absolute world. And I'd love to have you as part of the channel. My name's Becky Safe, and I will see you for another video. Bye!